I'm going to lay out what happens, what's going on here with Candace, Bibi Netanyahu, and Bill Ackman, because it kind of leads up to something that happened between Charlie and me on this show about a month ago, August 6th. Okay, and the audience experienced this with me, so I'm just going to set up what's happening so everybody understands. Bibi Netanyahu went on Fox News on September 11th, the day after Charlie was shot, and commented on the loss of the man he said was his friend. And here's that in SOT 1 in part.
He was an extraordinary friend. He said, he wrote me a letter on May 2nd this year. He said, one of my greatest joys as a Christian is advocating for Israel and forming alliances to defend Judeo-Christian civilization. A few weeks before the tragedy yesterday, I called him and I spoke to him and I said, please come to Israel. I invited him to Israel. And sadly, that visit will not take place. But he was a defender of our common Judeo-Christian civilization. He was unbelievably excited to walk in the footsteps of Jesus here. He valued our bond, the bond between America and Israel.
Okay, so Candace, who's been critical of Israel in this conflict, did not appreciate that we had a foreign leader reading part of Charlie's letter, trying to characterize his stance on Israel without giving it its full measure, because it had changed a bit in recent months. And she is not wrong about that. She responded on her show, and Candace was very good friends with Charlie. I mean, she called herself a Mason of Turning Point, and she is. She is. She helped build that group when she was coming up and Charlie was coming up, and they're both very young. They were out there at many events together before anybody knew the name Turning Point, or Charlie Kirk for that matter. And I was actually very moved by the video montage she showed of pictures of her and Charlie together and singing together and dancing, having a great time. You know, they were young in this business and figuring things out. So I believe Candace is sincere in her upset around Charlie's everything. I mean, obviously around Charlie's death, but around people trying to talk for him and sort of summarize his position on something as controversial as Israel. So here is what she said. Again, in part, you should go watch her show to hear the full measure. But here is what she said in response to Netanyahu on her show just the other day, SOT 2.
No, there definitely is a little bit more to the story. First and foremost, that letter he is holding up, he is severely misrepresenting. Those sentences are real, but I am calling upon Bibi Netanyahu, the dear friend to Charlie Kirk, to publish the letter's entire contents. Like, don't start with just 2 sentences. Publish the entire thing. You're holding it. I'm saying you're severely misrepresenting the contents, that in May, Charlie was concerned about Israel and their influence on American politics and how they were pushing things that he felt were in conflict with his beliefs, free speech here in America. Bibi's holding it up like Charlie just in May said, hey, you know what? I just want to write a love letter to Israel. That's how it was presented. Would you guys agree? That's not how it happened.
So she's basically suggesting he's leaving out an important piece of Charlie's evolution on Israel. She went on to talk about, and this is the first I had heard this news, a meeting that Charlie had at the home of Bill Ackman in the Hamptons on August 5th, with a bunch of influencers, as it was described by Bill Ackman later, some of whom he said were pro-Israel and some of whom he said maybe not so much. And there was a meeting at Bill Ackman's Hamptons home. Charlie was there. So were some other so-called influencers. And Candace suggests that at that meeting, Bill Ackman pressured Charlie, he was very supportive of Israel. Do not get me wrong. I mean, I know. I spoke with Charlie directly about this. But he was starting to have the same doubts, questions about whether this could continue without Israel losing all of its support in the world, as I was. And he and I had a long talk about our frustration at being dubbed anti-Zionist or anti-Israel or anti-Semites even just for those very mild criticisms. I mean, my God, it was fucked up, okay? It really was. And he was frustrated by that, and so was I. Now, Candace had a different characterization of that meeting than the one you're going to hear from Bill Ackman. And hers dovetails with this reporter, Max Blumenthal, who also reported on the meeting. Here is what she said, again, in part, in SOT 4, where she said they had this meeting, and she suggested that meeting with Bibi occurred while Charlie was at that meeting at Bill Ackman's house in the Hamptons.
A couple of weeks ago, before Charlie lost his life, Charlie was in the Hamptons, and he had more than one event, but he had essentially what was staged, an intervention was staged by Bill Ackman, because Charlie's rational thoughts about Israel were a no-no. This is not the route that you should be going on. And Charlie was surrounded by his friends, his quote-unquote friends. Bill Ackman was very upset, and threats were made. It was at this time that Bibi Netanyahu was called, and Charlie was invited to Israel. This was an under duress situation, I would say. And I know that Charlie was offered a ton of money in this moment. A ton of money. Bibi would fund it, spend tons of money. And Turning Point, I guess, if it needed to go to a higher level, would have gone to an even higher level than it already was at. And I know for a fact that Charlie denied that funding, that Charlie denied, and what Bibi didn't include there, he declined to go to Israel.
Okay, here's more. This Max Blumenthal reporting, he writes for his own outlet called Gray Zone. He used to work for the Daily Beast. The Nation Media Matters, which explains why in his reporting he referred to me as an anti-Zionist. Wrong, Max. I'm totally a Zionist. I completely believe in Israel's right to exist, and I've defended their right to defend themselves after the disgusting, horrendous terrorist attack on them in 2023. So get it straight. But in any event, he too reported that the Ackman outing was an intervention he used, during which sources say he and others hammered Charlie, that Charlie came away fretting about Israeli blackmail. He says he's spoken to 5 people with intimate knowledge of Kirk's meeting, and that he alleged that Ackman personally confronted Kirk about his views on Israel. An unknown British woman joined in the argument and began screaming at Charlie. When his host presented him with a detailed list of every offense he supposedly committed against Israel, Charlie was horrified, said one person. Ackman also allegedly demanded that Kirk rescind his invitation for Tucker Carlson to speak at his upcoming America Fest 2025 in December. Ackman, he came under fire too, because he had tweeted out recently, "I feel incredibly privileged to have spent a day and shared a meal with Charlie Kirk in the summer. He was a giant of a man." And once again, Candace and others suggesting that that's not the whole story, because if he really was threatening Charlie, that's a weird tweet, an incomplete tweet. Now, Bill Ackman responds, as only Bill Ackman can. We'd be here for another 3 hours if I read you his whole response. As you guys know, the Ackman tweets are just legendary for their 49 paragraphs minimum. But this one deserved a bit of a response because he's being accused of something pretty vile. And he described these accounts as totally false. I think I can easily put this to bed. He promised, "I have receipts," as they say. He did not abide when asked to provide the so-called receipts, reports Max Blumenthal. But Ackman did go on X and said, "I've been slandered by Candace Owens." She'll be responding, I'm sure, shortly, of staging an intervention with Charlie in which threats were made. He says it's not true. At no time have I ever threatened Charlie, Turning Point, or anyone associated with him. I've never blackmailed anyone, let alone Charlie. I've never offered Charlie or Turning Point any money in an attempt to influence them. I connected with Charlie when he had DM'd me in late May of this year and expressed interest in meeting me. On the Zoom, he explained to me that conservatives, in particular young ones, were getting tired of defending Israel, and this was very concerning to him. He suggested, Bill Ackman says, Charlie, that recruiting a group of junior Charlie Kirks who could host open mic sessions on college campuses would be an effective way to encourage debate on a host of issues, an approach he believed to be worthy of consideration and better enable students to get to the truth. I was interested in learning more. We scheduled a series of conference calls between Turning Point staff members and members of my team. And then we assembled this diverse group of influencers for a 1.5-day session. We chose the afternoon of August 4th to the afternoon of August 5th for the convening. Charlie and members of my team worked to put together. I offered to host the sessions so that I could attend some. Charlie sent out the invitations. About 35 or so influencers accepted. Charlie and Turning Point put together the agenda. Some were critical of Israel. Some were supportive. At the end, I sat with Charlie and members of my team. We discussed the events of the evening. Charlie believed he had identified a number of potential Turning Point ambassadors who could launch open mic events on campus and would then follow up with them. We agreed to keep in touch thereafter. We corresponded by text over the next few weeks. This was not an intervention to blackmail Charlie into adopting certain views on Israel. It was nothing of the sort. Candace did respond in part on X last night, saying, I know feigning victimhood is kind of an Israeli brand thing, but I was clear that Charlie felt blackmailed by the offer to fund TPUSA, which he refused, meaning from Netanyahu, I think she means here. No one said Bill Ackman blackmailed Charlie. Try to resist the urge to rewrite history. And she goes on saying people in attendance did characterize it as an intervention. Here is where I'm going with it. Oh, and by the way, I should mention, this is important. Andrew Colvett, who is Charlie's right-hand man at Turning Point, we know him well, wrote the following. I've been asked about this weekend event with Bill Ackman more than a few times now, so I asked our staff who were traveling with Charlie to find out what's true. His team was with him 100% of the time when he was not in his hotel room. Here's what they told me. Bill never yelled at Charlie, never pressed him on Bibi, never gave him a list of Charlie's offenses against Israel. There was concern raised about having Tucker at the Student Action Summit. We don't believe this came from Bill. And Charlie's reply was, honestly, people telling me not to have Tucker makes me want to have Tucker. And I am going to lock him in for AmFest too. Charlie personally told me, says Andrew, he had a very cordial relationship with Bill and the event was productive. Those are the facts. Well, here is the reason I am weighing in. I wasn't there and I don't know what happened. But the day Charlie was done with that summit at Ackman's house, he came on my show. It was his last appearance on the Megyn Kelly Show on August 6th. And I asked him about his evolving views on Israel and about the criticism we both had come under for, honestly, like the most milquetoast criticisms of Israel. It was just crazy. I don't think Charlie actually even really did criticize Israel. I think he just hosted his Turning Point event in July in which he had tons of pro-Israel people, tons. But also Dave Smith was there, who's a critic, and Tucker was there, who's become a bit of a critic. And he got so much shit for this. And Charlie was really frustrated by this and annoyed because no young person, no person under 30 in America supports Israel. They just don't. Look at the polls. It doesn't matter whether you're conservative or not, like virtually none of them. And that was Charlie's constituency. And Charlie was hearing from those people that they were not into this and they really weren't into our support for the war in Iran and bombing Iran and all that. And he was trying to find a way of bringing that to President Trump and bringing that to his donors and to everybody else to say, hey, you might be losing some support here. I said the same, and both of us got treated like we are Mehdi Hassan, and we were annoyed. We were both annoyed by that. So we had the conversation. I did not tell Charlie we were going to discuss it. Usually when guests are coming on the show, we'll give them a heads up, like in case they want to study up on something, whatever. Like these are probably generally the 8 to 10 topics we're going to hit. And we did not give him heads up on this because I didn't even tell my team on it. I just decided to do it. And here is a chunk of how that went. And something's happening, though, with this whole debate that is really bothering me, and I wonder if you're feeling it too. My contention here is that some in the pro-Israel camp are so knee-jerk about calling you anti-Semitic or getting deeply offended if you say anything that doesn't align with their narrative, that it undermines their own cause. And I have to tell you, I find it very irritating. I'm so glad you brought this up, and I would second that. Megyn, I think I have a bulletproof resume showing my defense of Israel, both on campus, on social media, to great, let's just say mockery and scorn at times because I believe it, right? I believe in the scriptural land rights given to Israel. I believe in fulfillment of prophecy. And again, I'm not a theologian, but I'm a Christian. My life was changed in Israel. The spiritual energy is so amazing there. I want them to win. I've said that repeatedly. Same.
And however, Megyn, you're hitting on something very potent and important. Now, let me first say, I don't want to judge an entire group because there's been many people in the pro-Israel world that have been very sweet, very kind, very nuanced, very Charlie, you were with us. You don't have to agree all the time. However, and I will say this, the behavior by a lot, both privately and publicly, are pushing people like you and me away. Not like we're going to be pro-Hamas, not like we're going to, but we're like, honestly, the way you are treating me is so repulsive. I have text messages, Megyn, calling me an anti-Semite. I am learning biblical Hebrew and writing a book on the Shabbat. I honor the Shabbat, literally the Jewish Sabbath. I visit Israel and fight for it.
It's very irritating.
It's
been
almost
so
as if
unfair.
you,
they were coming after you after a turning point for, among other things, that you had Dave Smith there. Dave Smith is allowed to criticize Israel. You had both sides. The Israeli side was overrepresented.
No, you're not allowed to. It's even worse than that. Again, I just want to repeat for the 5th time. I love Israel. I want Israel to win. But my moral character is now being put into question, Megyn. Not my decisions. Not like, hey, are you doing this? Is it smart or is it dumb? But no, I am a bad person if I do this. And I could go, you saw it, Megyn. It was trending on Twitter, thousands of tweets and text messages. And if I were to be charitable and generous, I will say, the people that are attacking me are in a hyper-paranoid state because they're at war, and war tends to make things black and white, and you're a hammer looking for a nail. So I'm trying to be charitable, Megyn. Literally, I'm trying to cut as much slack as I can, right? Like, okay, what would it be like if all of a sudden I'm starting to see a pattern of behavior similar to what my grandparents saw in 1930s Germany online? How would I behave? So that's like my charitable kind of overcompensation spirit. At the same time, I'm like, but it's not defensible to be dumb, right?
Yeah.
So,
and it's offensive. It's offensive to those of us who have been out there defending them in many instances against critics on our own side. And now you have a couple of comments like, well, what about this? Well, has it gone on too long? Like, is it time to wrap it up? And the thing about Epstein is just so bizarre. I don't know who he was an agent for. It might have been Israel or an asset, or it might have been nobody. Yeah. But we're allowed to speculate about that. It's there's some rule. You can't go there when it comes to Israel.
Well, you and I believe that we're Americans and Americans first, period. End of story. We are citizens of this nation. Personality types like you, myself, and Tucker, the more that you guys privately and publicly call our character into question, which is not isolated, right? Megyn, it would be one thing if it was one text or two texts. It is dozens of texts.
Yes.
Then we start to say, hold the boat here.
I thought that was very, very well said by Charlie, as usual. And I want to verify that he was feeling frustrated, and he was feeling pressured, and he was feeling like his character was being assassinated by people publicly and privately who are, I guess, consider themselves more pro-Israel than Charlie. And he refused to back off of his criticisms and said the truth, which is, in his case and in mine, the more you tell us we can't talk about something the way we want to talk about it, the more we're likely to do it. When inflation jumps, when you hear the national debt is over $37 trillion, do you ever think maybe now would be a good time to buy some gold? Well, you'd be right. Whether as a hedge against inflation, peace of mind during global instability, or just for sensible diversification, Birch Gold Group believes every American should own physical gold. And so they created something special. Until September 30th, if you're a first-time gold buyer, Birch Gold is offering a rebate of up to $10,000 in free metals on qualifying purchases. To claim eligibility and start the process, request an info kit right now. Just text MK to 989898. Plus, Birch Gold can help you roll an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold, and you're still eligible for a rebate in free metals of up to $10,000. So make right now your first time to buy gold and take advantage of a rebate up to $10,000 when you buy before September 30th. Text MK to the number 989898 to claim your eligibility and get your free info kit. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.